Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Awakening Beauty contemplation. As always, how we start is important. So, I would like to invite you to grab one of your favorite drinks, tea or coffee, or simply a glass of water, and join me for another contemplation about discernment. Last time we talked about intellectual arrogance and how it's increasingly happening all around us. This time, I would like to dig deeper with some specific examples and hopefully invite us to share our truth, our wisdom with dignity instead of shaming others. For the ones who are not familiar with this intellectual arrogance concept that I've been talking about, I will be linking the first video in the description. But in a nutshell, I was inspired by some of my own observations in the digital space. I started seeing even more and more people coming into the space with bold claims. And the bolder the claims are, the bigger their followers are. And from an algorithmic sense, this might make sense, but in terms of the intentionality, in terms of the tonality, in terms of the resonance of what they were talking about, I was feeling and seeing so much dissonance. And that is what I wanted to bring into attention. So, as creators, as listeners, we are conscious about how we create, how aligned our creations are, so we could first be the embodiment of the changes that we would like to see more in the world and also share it broadly with others from a space of wholeness. So after sharing that contemplation, interestingly, one of the channels that was giving me some examples in the previous contemplation about not so good demonstrations of creation revealed some of their inner secrets. The creator shared how she is working with ChatGPT in a way that helps her to create the scripts that created these big and bold statements. And here is what the script says. What is allowed is irony, sharp language, and emotionally intense language. Emotionally charged responses are allowed, but only when they serve truth, not when they mask it. And under the sections that needs to be avoided, here are a couple examples. Substituting knowledge with belief or intuition, softening conclusions for emotional comfort. And of course, when you create your scripts using this type of boundaries, what emerges from that is really very intellectually smart, big and bold statements. You are not able to do XYZ because dot dot dot, very rational and logical points. You are failing because, or to be able to be successful, here is what you need to do with magical solutions of some number points. And it's so easy to see how dominant these tactics are. Like I briefly mentioned in the previous video when I started my journey a couple years ago, because this was something new personally for me too, I have consciously invested into the courses of some of these creators. And what was shocking to see was really how they were faking the game. My intention here is not to point specific people, but use this as examples for articulating some of the concepts, for giving you some ideas for you to consider what might be happening behind the scenes. So, just to articulate again one of the teachers and teachings, here is exactly what was shared in the course. It's important to have an active voice, to have confidence and conviction. Tools you can use to sound more confident is eliminating words that imply uncertainty, speaking in absolute terms, and exaggerating your point to add energy. Can you see? So speak bold with very black and white terms, and where possible, exaggerate emotions to create tension. And in the previous example, it was even more clear with the ChatGPT prompt. What needs to be eliminated is intuition. So we are not leveraging all of our humanity. We are ignoring the embodiment. We are ignoring the emotional side of humanity. Yet, while we are ignoring that as must avoided things, we are bringing the weaknesses of our humanity, our emotions that are easy to be manipulated, into the game of the algorithms so that we can trigger people, so that we can loop them in. Isn't it interesting? And what is even more interesting is to see that these are coming from the creators who claim to heal the world. Like I said, the intentions are important. That's a starting point. And I would like to acknowledge and honor that their intentions might be coming from a pure place. Who am I to know? So, having said that, when the intentions are pure, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are translated into the world in the right way, at the right level of resonance that is aligned with the intentions. So, in this case, even if the intention of the creator is to heal, I'm not so sure whether they were able to do it in the way that reveals that wholeness that they would like to bring back to the world. Again, what is healing? Healing comes from wholeness, and wholeness means all. It means diversity. It means multiplicity. It means welcoming different points of views. And especially if we are bringing the concepts that we think are not discussed well, outlier concepts, the concepts that are ignored, I think it is even more important that while we are doing so, we are not dishonoring the others, or we are not doing the same mistake of ignoring others. We are not doing the same injustice while we are trying to do justice for our own truth. To me, this is at the heart of nonviolence. I love Gandhi and his teachings. Initially, the mainstream definition of nonviolence is really reacting to violence in a nonviolent way, which is one way of interpreting this. But recently, I heard another one, and I loved it even more. This translation in English was creative love, ahimsa, creative love. So whenever you are exposed to harm, violence, non-love, instead of returning to the same level of consciousness and returning the same energy with the same level of energy, how can you transmute? How can you transform? How can you bring wholeness into what you have received? And even if you receive non-love, how can you be love and transmit that love energy in a creative way out to the world? Another favorite saying of mine, which I also referred in the last contemplation. I think in a gentle way, we can shake the world. We don't need to be harsh. We don't need to only use mind games, authoritative claims, manipulative tactics to be able to reveal our truth, to be able to reveal wholeness, to be able to make contribution into the world with our own wisdom. We can bring our voice. We can bring unspoken perspectives. But we can do it with love. We can do it with compassion. And I think the highest form of this is really bringing it out to the world in a creative, loving way. And this brings me to another heartbreak I have experienced recently, which is the second trigger for me to sit here and record this contemplation. A couple days ago, I came across the video of one of the founders of spiritual communities that I have been following quite some time. And he was talking about a mainstream concept with a very catchy title. It was clear that this was a nice marketing strategy to lure people in. And indeed, he said that that is what he did. Somewhere in the middle of the contemplation, he apologized, saying that I'm sorry, I lured you in because I wanted you to listen to me. So I can promote my services and solutions as an opportunity for addressing this thing that lured you in to this concept. So if this was coming from just another business owner in the traditional business game of playing according to the rules of the game, not even having enough discernment, dignity, and wholeness in themselves, probably this wouldn't bother me as much. But knowing this person, knowing his teachings, knowing the integrity of the teachings, I questioned this approach because I expected the approach to be more aligned with the wholeness of the teachings as well. In a way, I know that he is promoting something good, something that he believes is going to contribute to the wholeness of humanity. But the way that he was doing this was not holding the teachings at the level of the teachings and extending invitations to other people from the wholeness, from the authenticity of the teachings, from the level of resonance. He was downgrading to a level of the algorithms, creating some catchy titles and bringing some emotional and manipulative tactics to lure people in so that he can position his products and services in the end. To me, this triggered quite a lot of contemplations as a creator. Is this all we can do? Can we do better instead of going back to the old rules of the game that we know is not working? If we have the right level of wholeness held in us, can we be bold enough to think about different options? Can we extend invitations from a level of resonance that invites people gently to rise up, that inspires people? They might not know it, they might not understand it from a logical perspective, but I'm sure they would feel it in their hearts. Coming back to David Hawkins and his dear reminder that I shared in the previous contemplation. Truth needs no defense. Whenever we are exaggerating things, whenever we are looking for manipulation tactics, there's something missing there. Truth needs no defense. It just is there. And whenever we speak our truth, it always connects with the right people, circumstances, opportunities that are supposed to meet us there. And maybe we should also be okay for not being for everyone. That's also another part of authenticity, creating systems out of integrity. We should acknowledge that diversity is our beauty. We might have a certain point of view, we might have a certain perspective and certain stance in life, and it might not be aligned with others. We can stand in our own truth, revealing that, honoring that, extending it with care and curiosity for others. But this doesn't necessarily mean that we should blame, shame others, other perspectives. Nonviolence. We can find creative ways of expressing our truth, and we can build healthier, diverse systems in which we can hold different point of views together with gentleness. How can we do that? Honestly, I don't know all the answers too. I am just showing up authentically, doing my best to know myself, to show myself here authentically. And I'm using my mind to come up with creative solutions that I think might be more aligned with the soul of what I would like to create in the world, with the essence of what I would like to create in the world. In the context of these contemplations, instead of bringing big and bold statements with certainty, authority, just to make people believe in what I say, my approach is to extend invitations, ask different questions so that we can see a certain point from different angles. Yes, I might have a certain point of view, and usually that certain point of view might be different from the mainstream, but at least in my own expression, I'm not negating what's there in the mainstream, but I am adding another layer. So it's like holding paradoxes together and being okay to do that. It's like spiraling in our own embodiment, grounding ourselves in our own bodies, but from that groundedness, opening our minds to different reflections of the truth and going deeper, going deeper, going deeper, understanding even more subtle levels. And we can do that in the form of living in the questions, living in curiosity. Curiosity coming from the root kura, which means care. How can we deeply care? To love, to learn out of love, to be curious about ourselves, to be curious about life. How can we open more, open our hearts more, open our minds more? And do it from a place of wholeness, from a place of integrity, from a place of dignity. So instead of contributing more to the problems out there in the world, division, one sidedness, arrogance, shame, blame, we could offer something different. And we can start by being different ourselves. So, what does this mean? So, for the creators out there like myself, I would like to invite us to be more discerning in terms of how we approach our creations. Are we really creating from a point of wholeness? What is our intention? And how can we put our minds into the creation of the right systems that will bring that intention to life with dignity, respect for all? For listeners, for consumers of content in this digital space, I would like to also invite you to practice more discernment in terms of what you put into your minds, into your hearts. Words have importance. It's not a coincidence that we say abracadabra. I create as I speak. The way that we speak with ourselves, the way that we let others to speak to us has an impact in terms of how we see ourselves, how we see our world. And we all have our own inner authority in us. We know the answers. We don't need quick 3 or 4 different solutions and tips and tricks to give us the solutions that might work for someone else. That we can give ourselves enough head and heart space to determine what is right for us. We can consume different diverse content, but let's be discerning about the resonance of that content. And let's be a lot more cautious in terms of what impact that content has on us. Do we feel small or bolder, larger, more inspired at the end of the consumption? Words have meaning. Through words, through resonance, we create our world. And we are that world that we so aspire to create. A true teacher is the one who holds this mirror. It shows the inner teacher in you back to you. Well, as always, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your heart and mind. Thank you for opening, and thank you for bringing your own discernment. As always, I would like to thank you for being the beauty you are and creating more of it out in the world. Till next time, stay beautiful.